Good morning, I'm Chris Fox, and today we are recapping the first week of 12 Weeks to a Trilogy. So this week has been great so far. I did a ton of awesome world building. I finished the prequel novella Planet Strider, so that's done and off my plate. There is a draft of that available to read if you're curious. I'll link it in the comments. Yeah, tons of progress. We're going to jump into it in just a second here. I did get quite a few questions. Most of those questions centered around two topics. World building and plotting, so do I have books 2 and 3 plotted, and if so, how am I doing that? And then what exactly is a reader magnet and what do I mean by that term? So I have a brief explanation of that at the end. So let's go ahead and jump into the video and you can see how I did this week. Couldn't be more pleased and am thrilled to be doing this. Okay, so let's start with the recap for the week. You can see Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the first 3 days that we tracked in the challenge, and what each sprint was and what my daily totals were. Now, I want to talk for a minute just about the tools that I'm using here. Last year, I used an app that I created, but I felt like people relied on the app a little bit too much and thought that the app was a bigger part of the process than it actually was. And what I wanted to show you is really any tool will work. And you shouldn't get hung up on what tool it is. Just find something that works for you. Don't spend 3 weeks looking for a spreadsheet or making one. Spend that 3 weeks writing and then maybe refine the sheet that you use. So what I did is I searched on Google, found this sheet. This was the second link that I found. It gives me a percent complete for the entire project and just a place to put daily word counts. Real simple, but it's working for me and it only took, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes for me to find. Then I bolted on another spreadsheet where I could write down my individual sprints, and this took me another 2 or 3 minutes, and this is what I'm using, guys. I'm not going to do anything more complicated because I do want to show that simple tools can still get you to the desired outcome. Taking a look at the Scrivener document, here we are. Prologue was the first chapter, so I edited this one. I went through it and cleaned it up a lot and added a few hundred words. Added Ganog 7, which I wrote from scratch. Did Planetfall, Warpgate, Assault, and did I get to Planet Strider? Let's see if we did. I did! So you can see these are the chapters that I've got done so far. By the end of the day, I would like to have the rest of Act 1 finished. A lot of what I've been doing this week is plotting and of course writing the reader magnet you'll hear about later in the video. I did cut out a bunch of chapters and reorder my storyline based on writing the prequel novella. And that was tremendously helpful. In any case, you can see what I've got done so far. Each week, I'll do a very short segment where I do go out of this document. I may spend a little bit more time getting into details than I do in this video, but I just wanted to show you kind of where we're at in the process. So let's go ahead and jump into world building, and you can see some of the stuff that I created this week. Okay, so let's talk world building. The number one question that I received over the course of the first week, and I got it at least a dozen times, probably more, was do I have books 2 and 3 already plotted out? And the answer is no, I don't. So if you look at book 2, this is the sum total of what I have. If you look at book 3, this is the sum total of what I have. Not much at all, as you can see. And odds are really good that both of these summaries that I've put together will be obliterated and replaced entirely. Books 2 and 3 will bear very little similarity to what I have written here. So the question then becomes, how do I get from where I'm at with kind of starting on this book to I've got an entire trilogy? How do I plot books 2 and 3? And the answer is world building. So what I did is I came up with a few major characters, antagonists, protagonists, allies. This particular character is an ally, Ganog Rebel. And originally he didn't have a name. He was just sort of an archetype placeholder. And I started fleshing him out a little bit, figuring out who he was and what he wanted. And while I was doing that, I figured, maybe he should be a little bit like a Ronin. And I took that and I ran with it. If he was going to be a Ronin, why not make Ganog culture, the Imperium, like 16th century feudal Japan? And so that's what I did. I kind of gave their backbone a very similar culture to Japan from that time period. And that made it much easier to kind of write out the reader magnet, which we'll cover in the next segment of the video. And it did some great world building for the series. And this world building is what's going to get me the plot in book 2 and 3, because basically what you're after is figuring out who everybody is and what they want. And once you know these things, then you just sort of extrapolate forward. If the hero wants this and the enemy wants this and they both can't have what they want, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And you replicate that out for every character in your cast, and your plot kind of starts coming together. So what I did with Ganog Rebel, I have yet to do with Ganog Fleet Leader. You'll see he doesn't even have any artwork yet, or with the Hunter, but these are both going to be very, very important characters, and as I flesh them out, I get more parts of the plot. So one visible way that that can be done, which came about, by the way, as a result of the last video, I had mentioned that I had a character named New Chick, and that I didn't know how she was going to fit into the plot. Well, somebody in the comments suggested that I should spell her name Nuchik, and I did that, N-U-C-H-I-K, for those who can't read that small lettering. So Nuchik became a character, and I wrote a little description for her. She is part of Burke's squad. So creating her let me flesh out his squad a little bit further and create a new character arc that would pair with Hannon pretty strongly. So you could see my plot kind of getting stronger just because I made up a new character. And then this forced me to look more closely at the Burke plotline, where he's going to be a rival for Nolan. And what I eventually figured out is he wasn't the right rival for Nolan. We needed somebody more senior, somebody who could give Nolan orders. And so I called him preemptively Captain Rival as sort of a placeholder, and decided the easiest way to give him a real name was just to change one letter. I went from Rival to Rebel. So it's Captain Rebel. He is a staunch military man, has been for his entire career, has kicked a lot of butt in a number of different wars, and is part of the fabled First Fleet, whereas Nolan is from the outcast 14th Fleet. So there's sparks immediately between the two of them. Been kind of building an arc that not only affects the plot of the first book, but also tells me a lot about the politics of my coalition of united races. So every time I'm putting together a piece like this, any character that I'm creating, any concept that I'm creating, it's going to ripple through the plot. So I do a lot of world building up front, and I did a lot of it this week. Let's see, something else that would be interesting, religion. So I decided that the Ganog state religion, they worship a pantheon of nameless gods. And these nameless gods are in reality the Gorthians from my previous trilogy. So they shaped this Imperium, and the Imperium now kind of worships the Gorthians without really knowing that that's what they're doing. So that gave me a great framework for how to create their civilization, because I started asking, well, what would the Gorthians instill in this culture? How would this culture have grown out? You know, and they're part Klingon, part Japanese samurai, very feudal, constantly warring, mostly on other races, but also on each other from time to time. And they don't really value technology in the same way that, say, our culture does. So using technology is great, and they all want to have wonderful technology, but building and repairing technology is considered beneath them. That's something that techs do, and techs are a lowly necessity, not a valued member of society. So I kind of added that plot line in. So this is probably a little bit disjointed, but I'm hoping that what you're seeing here is that I'm gradually pulling together various concepts, and over the future videos I'll get a lot more in-depth into the concepts that I'm fleshing out here, and hopefully that gives you kind of a bit of a better picture about how you go from a big question mark to, oh, I've got a trilogy plotted. So one of the number one questions that I received this week is, Chris, what is a reader magnet? A lot of new people have found the channel and aren't familiar with the concept, so I wanted to go over that briefly. A reader magnet is simply something you give away for free in exchange for someone's email address. So if you look here on my website, you have the option of signing up for nonfiction or fiction. If you click that link, it takes you to a page where you put in your email address and I send you a free story. It's that simple. This concept works phenomenally well for list building. It's something I've done over and over for my various lists and will continue to do. And I explain that concept a lot more in both Launch to Market and Six Figure Author. If you're curious, those are available free in Kindle Unlimited. But I think that they are a really powerful tool, and this go round I was determined to do this first, to finish my reader magnet first. And so the first couple of days of writing during my 12 weeks to a trilogy was completing my reader magnet. So Planet Strider is done. You can see Aluki here as one of the characters that I created for it. But if you look at the ebook, it's 9 chapters long. It's about 9,000 words. The chapters average about 1,000 words each. And I did a tremendous amount of world building here. So I figured out who various characters were, and it's from the perspective of the Ganog rebels. So we see what Ganog culture is and religion. And I got to build all this stuff while also writing an action-packed story that ties in really nicely with the main narrative. So it ends at the exact moment that the Behind the Lines novel begins. So they really line up seamlessly, and that was kind of one of my goals. The story is available if you want to download it and take a look. You're going to see misspellings and other problems. It is by no means a final version, but you can kind of get a look at the rough draft. And what I will also do, I created a Scrivener file called Planet Strider pre-edit. So this is before I've done all my work kind of cleaning it up. This is the very rough draft. And if you sign up to the mailing list, I will release this file as well as the final book so you can kind of read what Planet Strider is and get a better idea of the series. So anyway, that's a Reader Magnet. I hope you find this a little bit helpful. If so, please feel free to throw me a like and or subscribe to the channel. I'm going to get back to the writing, but in 7 more days, next Friday, you will see the end of week 2, and we'll be most of the way by that point through the first book, Behind the Lines, over halfway. So yeah, so far so good. Thanks for following along. I appreciate it, guys.